Okay, I don't think I'll use the whole 20 minutes, but we'll see. I might get carried away in a flurry. Minister, I have to say your introductory bit of your speech was very well written and very moving in its aspirations, and I couldn't agree with you more that we should use our economic success to build a fair and compassionate society. And I couldn't agree with you more about removing soft barriers in the way of children with special needs. And I couldn't agree with you more that we need schools to publish their enrolment policies and end waiting lists. And I couldn't agree with you more that we need to ensure that we don't discriminate against parents and children on a whole number of grounds. But I'm not happy at all with the bill, and I don't think a lot of people out there are, because here was a historic opportunity, or indeed is a historic opportunity, to do something that no man has dared to do before in this country. I want to read a letter from a constituent of mine, and he or she, can't remember whether it was male or female, it's immaterial. Dear Deputy Smith, as you know, this week the Dáil will debate the Education Admissions to School Bill. The bill makes many reforms that have the potential to affect the lives of children and families in a really positive way. For example, schools will have to publish an official policy for pupils who want to opt out of faith formation during the school day. However, I think it is unacceptable that the bill does not deal with the baptismal barrier. I find it incredible that in an Ireland of today we allow our publicly funded schools use a child's religion or non-religion to discriminate them for a school place. I believe this is no longer acceptable in a modern, pluralist Ireland. It is discrimination towards children, plain and simple. I do not believe that any institutions in receipt of taxpayers' monies should be allowed to discriminate against any citizens. As my local TD, I am asking you to speak during this debate and raise with Mr Bruton these points. Will you, the Minister for Education and Skills, remove the baptism barrier as part of the Admissions to School Bill in time for September 2017 and make a statement on the matter? And will you, Minister, publish the standard guidelines on opting out of faith formation so that all schools can use them as a template so that they can be in accordance with the requirement under the Education Admissions Bill 2016? And will you make a statement on the matter? So, all of those things I cannot. Sorry, I see it's a woman. I'm misled. Excuse me a second. All of those things I cannot endorse more. It just reminds me when she talks about it being incredible at this day and age that we haven't dealt with this issue and are not willing to deal with this issue, of how it's felt over the last few years trying to get this House to agree to a referendum on repeal the 8th Amendment, and the sort of issues that we've had to raise in terms of the legacy of the domination of the Catholic Church over our lives, over every aspect of our body, over every aspect of our health and education. And we have a slogan when we're out marching and protesting for repeal the 8th, not the Church, not the State, women can't wait, repeal the 8th. Now, obviously this doesn't fully apply, but a version of it applies to the admissions policies to schools. I want to say, Minister, that I do find it astonishing that nobody has had the courage to face down the dominance of the Church in education in this school in the 21st century, in this year 2016, on the anniversary of the Easter Rising, when Pearse, who was passionate about education, signed to a proclamation that said all of the children of the nation should be treated equally. And they're not being treated equally. If they're not baptised, there is 96% of the schools that they cannot access. What in the name of God is that about? Now, that's not to deride or to abuse the idea of baptism or Christianity or the will of parents who want that to happen, but it is to actually say that this is utterly unfair, it's unequal and it's discriminatory towards children at this time. There's a couple of things you mentioned in your speech about expectations changing and that we have to have the capacity to change with it. This bill doesn't do that. What it does instead is it makes concessions to the idea that your government, and it's been said by you and by the previous Minister for Education, and it's been said by Enda Kenny, that your government has legal opinion that states that this would be unconstitutional to remove from the legislation, let me just quote it now, to remove from the legislation the current section 7(3)(c), which effectively allows religious schools to discriminate against children of different religious backgrounds from their patron. We have other opinions, and there are more opinions that say that this is not the case, that it would not be unconstitutional to remove that section. We may have a problem with the Constitution going forward. We may have to say, here's another aspect of the Constitution that we may want to put to a referendum to repeal it out of the Constitution. It does not fit the modern Irish state. It doesn't fit the demography and the makeup of the modern Irish state, but it certainly doesn't fit a modern Irish state that has utterly rejected the dominance that was brought on the people of this society for decades, brought on them by fear, by power and by an imbalance that the Church had over the lives of every man, woman, child, every community, every school, every hospital, every institution. And need I go over the litany of desperation that dominance imposed on our society? I don't think I do have to. So, Minister, I would echo what my constituents said in terms of putting into that bill a ban on schools being able to discriminate on religious grounds. You went through the list of their inability to discriminate on every other ground under the sun except on religious grounds. And I think that removing the baptismal ban would be absolutely a signal to echo what you said so eloquently in your introduction, that you want to use the economic success to create a fair and compassionate society. If you really want to do that, then use this opportunity. The neocons in America famously said, you never waste a good crisis. And they did not waste the economic crisis, not a minute of it. Neither did the Troika, neither did this or the previous government waste a minute of that crisis. I want to say here very clearly tonight that we shouldn't waste a minute of the crisis that is faced by religious domination in this country. We should use it to the full and get rid of all of the legal bars on treating children, women and everybody else in this society with full equality. So I put it up to you to have the courage. You may lose it, you may be constitutionally challenged, and if you are, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Bring it to a head and instill that aspect that she talked about into the school bill. The aspect that says that you will remove the baptismal barrier, that you will get rid of section 7(3)(c). That would show a bit of guts, a bit of courage and a bit of reality behind the aspiration that says, I want to use the recovery to create an egalitarian and fair and compassionate society, because there is no compassion in using that baptismal ban. It is utterly disgraceful, and if we go forward from this without removing it, then I think this government will have absolutely failed. Having said that, we don't intend to leave it there. We have a bill in the pipeline from AAPBP that challenges this head-on and that aims to get rid of that section. Now, we may lose it here when it comes to a vote, but it doesn't matter. We have to challenge these things head-on, not pussyfoot around them, and not create other sections of bills and laws that allow for the continuation of discrimination rather than the total abolition of it.
Thomas Pringle.